Mm.
Oh my God, this is good.
It's the same for me. Yeah, this is so good. Right, so the wonderful concept for today that I have decided to go for is red wine for red meat. Red wine for red meat. However, we are going to do something a bit more interesting than just go French. Because my normality in the drinking of the world is I go red meat. I think, let's go for a Bordeaux. I think a different type of red meat. I think, let's go for a Burgundy. Let's go, no. We're going to go French grapes, but from foreign climates. So French grapes from foreign countries. So the idea is these are classic French wines, in my opinion, but they're made in another country. So how does that change it? How does that, what's the difference, man? And I know how much I love French wines. So today I've got what I could only be described as a Frenchman to be the advocate for foreign wines. This is high risk.
Yeah.
But he's a Frenchman. So say hello, Wine Frog. Introduce yourself. Who are you?
Well, I'm a Frenchman, and I started drinking wine basically just before I had milk, at first minutes of my life. And I think this is probably the reason why today I give my opinion on anything like fermented grape juice. I'm born in Champagne and raised with bubbles, then studied in Reims to get expert on that and get really bored. And so made the entire journey to Bordeaux to discover what tannins are about. I traveled to Burgundy and didn't have the money to carry on. So basically traveled to London, because if you don't speak English, then I'm not sure you can sell wine to the world. Discovered an awful lot of delicious wine. What a town. This is the wine town to me. Impossible to produce wine, but to import, best of the crop. And from there, I learned everything I think you can learn about wine. That is called WSET, and I become an educator on this. And I'm just passing the knowledge to Swiss people now. That's what I do.
I want to explain to people that I've known this guy for over 10 years, and thankfully we never worked together, or else we wouldn't have been friends. We were very close to working together, but we were in the same company, but never in the same place.
We studied together.
We studied together. We had a lineup of epic wines, tasted loads of wine, got each other through the diploma, and then since then
I've asked you a number of times as well to work with me, and you've always been very polite to decline my offers.
Slowly but surely, I'm not working with a friend. I know how that will go badly.
Yeah, you're right.
Two different people, but
we share wine, not business.
I've taught him so much about wine. He's a Frenchman. I mean, essence, what does he know? I've introduced him to the world of high-class Grand Cru Burgundy on beaches, and he's introduced me to how much butter you need to use when cooking a Côte de Boeuf. And it turns out it's like a whole bar. It's not like 100 grams or 200 grams. It's like a fucking bar of butter.
We do 250 grams of, butter lot, and that needs to go in the food, my friend. Otherwise, it is not called French. He's called plain and savoryless.
So why do we want red wine with red meat? Explain that to me.
That's very simple. Red meat is probably what people would fancy to have all the time. This is one of the most consumed dishes all over the world. And when you think about it for a second, red wine is the favorite drink. They prefer it over rosé, we prefer it over white, and certainly over sparkling or sweet. So it had to match. And somehow, also, I would say scientifically speaking, well, the tannins of the red grapes, what you found on the skin, and what you found also on the barrels, the wooden barrels that you use to make a wine, it's basically those tannins, that goes perfectly with the content, the protein content of the meat. So that's a perfect match. Easy.
To me, it's like, would you agree? The protein and the tannins, you kind of need both, right? And people get scared by the thing that dries your teeth out and the whole, that's too much. But actually that's essential, because it is the protein that then breaks down that. And okay, I'm not a scientist.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah. If you want your red meat to get softer, then this highly amount of protein seems like it is desiccated by the tannins. So
Yeah.
it's like a lot softer, and it makes your red meat just melting in the mouth.
So this is French grape, right? Cab Franc originally?
There we are. Yeah. Rats.
We have Dolomite. This is Rats Dolomite from Stellenbosch. It is a lovely South African wine from 2017. It is Cab Franc, 100% Cab Franc.
No, it is not. It's got 5% Malbec. And this is why it tastes a little different. It's got a bit more oomph to it. Thank you, Malbec.
This is why you're here, because it says 100%. It doesn't say that. It just says Cab Franc on here. But you've done your research. You know these wines. Hence why you know it's got a bit of Malbec. And I freaking love Malbec. But to be honest, I also like Cab Franc. When I think of French Cab Franc, I think of a medium-ish wine. And I think of red currants and red fruits. Am I wrong? Am I right? Tell me, Mr. Wine Educator.
Absolutely spot on. I think when we think about the origin of Cab Franc, we think of Loire. And Loire is a cold climate, okay? Mm-hmm. This is north of France. And you will extract only the softness and the red fruits and also the green notes. You know, sometimes people are being put off by Cabernet Franc because it's not really sort of powerful. It's the opposite of what a Malbec from Argentina would be, for example.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely meat-colored and high in acidity, as cool climate does. And pairing with sort of light food as well. So, Pedro, how would you call this example, this nose and this color, compared to Cabernet Franc from Loire?
She's bigger. She's. I'm not going to call her a beast. No, in any way, is this a beast? But it's definitely on the large S side than the French style. Oh my God, muscular. That's exactly right. 100%. She's got more intensity, more power.
But you really got that same nose, haven't you?
Oh, you got the same fruit characteristics, 100%. Yeah. You're not adding in like chocolate or weird tobacco-y things or anything. Like, I don't think. It's very fruit driven.
Absolutely.
Do you know much about Rats?
Yeah, Rats basically. This is one of the domain I really like, because rather than doing the classics of South Africa, let's say Pinotage. Have you tried Pinotage, Pedro, recently?
Mate, you know I have, and I hate it because I pretty much say to you every time, I'm not drinking Pinotage. There's only about one I've ever liked. It tastes like tar, filth, like nasty burn.
Yeah, but you like Barolo, and Barolo tastes like tar as well.
Yeah, but Barolo's Italian and it's classy and it's sophisticated.
There you are, okay.
It's part of the three B's of Barolo, Barbaresco, Brunello. It's the, Pinotage.
Yeah, Pinotage is the flagship grape, but then after that, what's most planted is Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, because they love to make their Bordeaux blend, same grape as in Bordeaux, but from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And after that, far, far away in the list of red grapes planted, you've got Cabernet Franc, and Rats is the expert. So this is why I like this domain. They've planted different grapes, and they put it to the highest level of what South African wines can produce.
It's like it says I was intrigued because I got quite a whiff. When I say whiff, I sound like a pretentious Pedro, but I got thanks. I got a strong smell of alcohol. Like there is warmth to this wine. It's only 13.5%, but when you really do that, you get like a sunshine.
Yeah, I always ask my students, first thing, can you smell alcohol or can you taste it?
Why? Why do you ask them that?
I'm asking you the question.
I know the answer. You tell me.
Can you smell alcohol?
Yes, I can.
Yes, you can. This is basically within your nostrils. It is really sort of warming up and almost touching you like the spices smell.
Yeah.
So you can have a first guess on how alcoholic a wine is by nosing it, and then definitely on the palate. Then you have tasted it. How is the alcohol, Pedro?
It's a little bit more restrained on the palate, but I still get the warmth at the end. It's still hanging around. It really is. I think, and this is why when we play our games as as wine people, and we sit there and I rock up with a bottle of wine that's covered in a sock, and I'm like, right, tell me what this is. The level of warmth in the palate and that thing on the nose of the alcohol is what's telling me, if this was blind, that this is a Cab Franc, but not from France, right? Because it's cooler in France. So this has got more intensity, more alcohol, more. So for me,
that's right.
Like I said to you before, it smells of deep, like red fruits. And it has that currant and raspberry. No, not raspberry.
But they're really mature. You know, they're not like these underripe kind of strawberries, you know, a bit greenish, etc. They're really, really ripe because we're coming from a warmer climate in South Africa. So basically, that is an altogether more pleasant Cabernet Franc to have than your northern, you know, sort of too cold climate Cabernet Franc to start with on your Cabernet Franc journey. It is basically a light to medium wine. So this is not to offense any Chinon producer, but this is like a starter, introductory wine. It is, for most of them, very, the acidity helps, you know, just going for starters like pâté en croûte, like charcuterie, goes very well with, because otherwise, you know, the pork, the saltiness is actually a little bit heavy. So with this lift of acidity and light red fruits of the Cabernet Franc, it pairs very well. Almost like a Beaujolais or a Pinot Noir. Let's consider it that way. And
I kind of agree. I do. I get what you're saying. However, because it's coming from South Africa, because it's coming from a hotter area, I think there is more depth to it than your Beaujolais, your Pinot Noir. So that's why I included it in our kind of steak box, in our red meat box, because I still think I don't want to go too light. There's still enough oomph behind it that it will go really well with venison, with wild boar, like saucissons and things like that. Like you say, pâté en croûtes and things like that. I think there's enough there. It's not a light wine. It's not prissy and
absolutely
like, simple.
I would never go bold on my food with Cabernet Franc, even though this surprising Dolomite has got weight, has got, you know, it's wide and it's big and it's rich, still with a lift. I'd say, yeah, for a slab of meat, a slab of either lamb or beef, but just not too thick. So then you would have just the most quickly pan fried, you know, I would put herbs on it. You know, I would throw everything I have in the kitchen board, like thyme, rosemary, in order to perfume and remind these green notes to your meat, but not the chunky ones, or not the ones that are cooked for hours, for example. Just pan fry, simple.
So you're saying you're doing that is quite simple, even though you're adding herbs and flavors and things like that. It's not super rich. You're not adding a massive sauce to it. You're not going over the top because what the sauce and the intensity of that flavor will overpower the Cab Franc. Because this is Stellenbosch. This is from a super like wine region that, like you say, does Cab Sauv, does like hefty wines. It's going to go with a really good braai where you're cooking stuff on a barbecue. Sorry, no, it's not going to the accents. I got told off for that earlier.
These red wines, when they're paired with meat, they really need to have acidity. Why? Because you are going to put tons of salt on them. We're not Jamie Oliver, so we never pretended to be chef, okay, and to be complex. We really want to have tasty food in the simplest way. So basically a little bit of sea salt, you know, crushed black pepper and some herbs. And remember, there's a tip. Always try to think, what is the grape that I'm having? And when I'm having Cabernet Franc, I know that this is going to be about herbal and green notes. So why don't I put herbs on my food? Boom, job done. You're pairing the flavor of the food with the flavors of the wine. And you're a chef. That's it. You're a sommelier. Boom.
So now we're going to move on to the next wine. Which wine should we go on to?
I would love to have a Malbec from Argentina, please, Pedro. And always have the fruity and then the more sort of spicy, big, rich after.
Hey, Malbec, we have wine from Mendoza in Argentina. Now, anyone who's been to Argentina, it is an amazing place to go to have food and wine. And what do we think of? We think of steak, amazing steak. We think of empanadas. We think of pork. When I was there and we're going up in the mountains and they have like that oven where they pull out a whole suckling pig. And then the most amazing meals you get in Argentina are the ones that last for hours. And then just the guy or the girl comes around with a plate of meat, and they just keep cutting the cooked meat. And you start off with the bits that are cooked at the start, and then you just go through a whole like pig, and then a whole we did pork, lamb, and beef all in one meal. And then they have what I can only describe as just like a little wink and a nod to vegetables in the center of the table of a small bowl of salad. The rest is just meat with Malbec, right?
Absolutely. Why would you need anything else? They have plenty of other grapes, say Bonarda, say Cabernet Sauvignon, but what they really do best is Malbec, and especially in Mendoza, where actually the grape is king.
These guys, they are right next door to one of the most expensive, most premium Argentinian wines, which is called Cheval de Andes. So they are the vineyard next door. And so Cheval de Andes, to give you, on release, it's 60, 70 euros, and it's made in conjunction with Cheval Blanc, one of the best Bordeaux, etc. So this is similar like level of quality to the top wines from Argentina.
Within Mendoza, there are several sub-regions, and they come, very important. It's like if I talk about Bordeaux, Bordeaux is very generic. I mean, it's hundreds of kilometers of vines, when actually when you mention Pomerol or when you mention Pauillac, you do expect something, from the grape and from the soil and from a producer, etc. When it comes to Mendoza and to this, say, neighbor of Cheval de Andes, it's because they are within the sub-region of Luján de Cuyo, which is rather high in altitude. It is perfectly exposed. It's got topsoils which are really draining. So it's actually a paradise for viticulture. It is so easy. It's impossible to produce bad wines over there.
So this is why you get quite a range of different Malbecs when you buy them, right? As in the sense that you can get quite a light, medium-bodied Malbec, and then you can get a heavy Malbec, and you can get a bang-average Malbec that's cheap and nasty from Argentina, and then you can get the epic ones. So what you're saying is you're looking specifically for that sub-region in the same way that people look for Margaux and Pauillac or Côte de Roi or Gigondas or Châteauneuf. You're saying to look for that region.
Absolutely. The world of wine is so dead simple. I mean, if you know that in altitude matters in Argentina. This is a flatland and it's baked by sun. So
it's super hot.
You would say, oh, brilliant. Then the grapes might be ripening ideally. Well, too quickly, and it's literally burnt. Actually, Mendoza is on the west-hand side, and it's on the slopes of the Andes. And this altitude, let's say by 500 or 700 meters, which in Europe is crazy. You wouldn't grow grapes over there. It's actually the perfect altitude. Anything which is underneath, you might think, oh my God, I've been warned, by Pedro, this is going to be cooked. And very high above, let's say 1100 meters, is probably going to be too high, just about, and it's going to be a little too cold. So you will find very fruity fruit bombs, lower altitude, and you will find sort of elegance and even light-ish wines above. And in that zone, boom, the best regions of Mendoza, and as this wine, Luján de Cuyo, Riccitelli.
So in fact, the good news about that is you don't have to read up on it and try and find the altitude. You just go that sub-region, Luján de Cuyo. If you see that, it's at the right altitude, generally speaking. So
go for that.
Be aiming for that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
cool.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer.
That's a super tip. Thank you very much. Because I was going to say the wine, you were saying the wine world is so easy. I think the wine world is so easy for me. The more geographically specific, the better the wine. It's that simple. If you're buying wine that's just labeled Western Australia or South Australia or like that could come from anywhere, and it's the more specific it is, normally the more expensive, but also the more control they have over everything and how much more the terroir influences, right? So in theory, weirdly, the more names attached to it, probably the better.
Absolutely, without knowing anything.
Without knowing anything.
It's a rather good guess, but to be fairly honest, I mean, you can apply this kind of sort of thinking to anything you buy. Let's take potatoes. I mean, potatoes
Cheese. You taught me. Okay, I don't think you taught me anything about wine. but you definitely have introduced me to being a French cheese expert.
True.
100%.
If you say processed cheese that is written French, is not telling
Yeah.
you a story, not telling you anything about from just milk that is turned into cheese. When
Right.
actually you eat Morbier, it comes from, well, Jura, just next door, by the way. And yeah, Morbier is a very particular method, and it needs to be done at this time in the morning and this time in the afternoon to make that cheese perfectly soft. And it's true with all the appellation contrôlée, all these names of the best cheese we like to eat, like Roquefort, like Comté, Cahiers des
And to
Charges.
follow on from that, you would also say that's the same in beef and things like that as well. And this is why, and red meat, and this is what I learned when in fact, when I first came to your house in France, you had the cooking Bible, because I've got the same cooking Bible, but like an English version.
Gastronomique.
Exactly. For La Rousse Gastronomique, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So the English one, I read through a bit, but then I came to yours and I went through the French one. And the difference in the cuts is insane between England and France and Spain, etc. And again, it's the more specific. So you guys out there who are chefs, you guys who cook, you try and find the same cut in France that you're used to buying in England, you probably can't. Because in England, they cut this whole area into one piece. And in France, they go, hey, this section is actually 12 different bits, because that is a very specific cut that goes in this dish, and this is there. And I think that's, again, the more specific, in theory, the better, right? Because you're being more precise.
Yeah, we're talking about Malbec from Argentina here. So basically, you got options. You can still carry on, trying to buy some Argentinian Malbec that will be cheap and cheerful and brings you little emotions. But you can be specific. And I think you pick up the right word, specific. And if you are interested a little bit and you make a little bit of research, then you understand that Mendoza is the best. And then you understand Juan Luyan de Cuyo is better than just random Mendoza. And then you go to onshore sellers, because Pedro is specific. He's going to tell you everything. So the more you care about what you buy, the better you drink.
And I'm not saying that, we're not saying necessarily it has to be more expensive. We're not saying, because
how much is this?
This is under 20 euros. It's 20 euros, give or take. Yeah.
There you are. 20 euro, a very good Malbec.
And what I love about having meals at your house and drinking with you is I often bring big guns, and because I can only turn up on my plane with a few bottles. So I'll bring one or two, and they'll be really expensive, or they'll be really special to me, or they'll be old or whatever. And that's really interesting. But then you'll bring out inexpensive wines, but there'll be wines I've never heard of, from places I've never heard of, from really specific regions and like little, and then you give me the story and you'll be like, no. This is why, is because it's this. And you've got to understand that, just because it's not this old and from a famous name doesn't mean it's bad. It's really specific to these people and this area. And that's what makes it great.
Yeah, it's a general mix of, reviewing and having your classics in your wine fridge, in your underground cellar, and also explore, be really interested in trying things out of your comfort zone. You're going to learn an awful lot. Maybe discover your next favorites, because the taste is changing. What I really, really like when I was 20 is not the same as in 40. So just imagine accumulating 200 bottles, 300 bottles of, let's say, Malbec from Argentina because I love it at 40.
Personally, I would disagree, because I wouldn't know what it's like to be 40.
Ever?
Not yet, my friend. but what I would say is that's why I picked these three wines to buy as part of a case, because I'm thinking you're covering bases, right? So the Dolomite Cab Franc, so if whatever you're cooking, you can go to your cabinet, which is what I do. I've got my rack, I've got my storage area where I keep my wine. You've got your big wine fridge, and we go there and we pick a wine that goes with the food. And so we've got the medium-bodied, like red, which will go with a lot of red meats, but not necessarily the really full-bodied, the really intense flavors. Then we've got Malbec. Now, this Malbec, tell me about this Malbec, because to me, you said Malbec's like the Argentinian Merlot. I always think of Malbec like the Argentinian Tempranillo. Similar. It's really smooth, really fruity. Like, to me, it's just dark cherries, like smash in your face dark cherries, which I love.
I
Oh,
just tried it. It is
mm,
fabulous. I mean, in mouth, what can you say about it? It is supple, soft, smooth, and also, and this is where we normally agree on what a quality on wine is about. It is length.
yes, yes.
Definitely, this is you put it in your mouth, and it's like always a surprise how good this is
So
and
what do you
how
mean by
long
length?
this is. Length is how many seconds can you taste it in your mouth. So it is very important for two reasons. A, because when you have a conversation with someone, if it is a good wine, then you are going to talk about wine. And that's where I care. You know,
Mm.
you're interrupted into your chat by the wine and says, "Ah, can you taste this?" Yeah, we're not having wine just to drink off and to get drunk. We're having wine to stop our conversation on weather. And you know, you guys are very special. The English are very specialist of that. So boom, you talk about wine. You're like, oh my god, what's happening in my mouth? Ooh, in my body. Second,
Yes.
the length helps matching the length, you know, the flavors of the food.
Mm,
So this is
mm,
great for both. You can open it when a good friend of you is coming
mm.
because you're going to have a chat and a nice glass of red, but you can also serve it to your neighbors when they come
Uh, uh,
for, you know,
exactly
eating
that.
that
Exactly
beef.
that.
And oh my
Yeah.
God, we have only one life, yeah? And life is too short to drink cheap wines and also to drink bad wines. So basically, what we've done together and what we are engaging people for when you be in a shop or in a school is drink better wine. And that is a cracking wine. This is Malbec at its best. You can have far less good Malbec and it would be sort of less complex in the mouth.
Mm.
And also it will cut short. It will be won't have the same length of for this wine.
So exactly that. For me, the word you said was supple, like super velvety smooth, vanilla, like bags of cherry, and then it just hangs. And it's not overbearing. Some Malbecs can be too much, but I guess that comes back to what you said when you were talking about the altitude that's just cooled down that insane hot area of Argentina.
It's almost European, but in South America.
Yes.
And this is what we want because we really used to have a complex balance between strength, and remember we talked about it earlier, this is mainly alcohol and tannins, and also elegance and what we
Mhm.
call acidity. So when there is this match, we call it somehow European or old world. And even in a new world, we want to replicate this sort of balance. Yeah. Here, the altitude gives enough acidity to be willing to have another glass, another
Mate,
sip.
I have had another glass, and
Yeah, there you go.
because it's still going. I keep tasting it. I keep tasting it, and I'm really struggling to work out which wine I'm going to take home tonight because I'm loving this. This is better than I remembered it. This is
Hmm?
the question is, what am I cooking it with?
Hey, listen, Pedro, when you have this amount of flavor, I call this bags of flavor in my wine, then I will cook food with lots of flavor, almost to put it on a par.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, this Malbec is going to overpower the food. So yeah, put it something like crazy, like your big Argentinian beef, lots of seasoning. Otherwise, the Argentinian empanadas, you know, bags with flavor.
So that's why this goes with chimichurri, with that sauce that you get in Argentina, which has bags of flavor with the
Absolutely.
steak. Because it doesn't, the steak on its own is okay, but when you add that sauce, you're smashed in the face with power and flavor.
That Malbec can stand anything, anything packed with flavor.
Time for a wine, another wine. It's time for Australia. So to me,
Torbreck.
I picked this because I'm looking at French wines that I know that I love,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm trying to find foreign versions of it and seeing what's happened to it. And I
Very good.
love Côte de Rhône. And I
Mm.
know from Alex, Wines by Alex, last week we discussed this, and
Okay.
she explained it to me that Côte de Rhône has to be predominantly Grenache. And it's Grenache with some
Absolutely.
Shiraz and with some Mourvedre, etc. So it's always a blend. So I've gone, hold on, let's find a Côte de Rhône Gigondas Baccarat style wine, but from Australia, and let's see how they do it. So this
It's
is why I've
very
got Torbreck. Torbreck.
TSM.
Fucking love Torbreck. absolutely
Oh,
to my
what a
heart.
bottle.
These guys have been like since my day one in Sunningdale in the UK back in 2008. This was one of the wines they were like, look, you got to try this stuff. These guys, the Strury, the Run Rig, freaking love
Top
Torbreck.
producer based in the famed Barossa Valley. Barossa Valley is where viticulture almost started, and fame for Australian winemakers in the world started. Normally, it's Shiraz, which is the king over there.
Classic. Yeah.
But yes, they wanted to make a version of the acclaimed, say, Châteauneuf-du-Pape. You mentioned Côte du Rhône. The Châteauneuf-du-Pape is the same thing. It's a bit more prestigious, yeah, and it's been drunk for 600 years in France. GSM, Grenache, Shiraz, Mourvèdre, has been the key for success for fantastic wines. So Torbreck is producing the top wines in Australia, like the Brand, like you said. But when you think about it, this is also a top pick because the entry level or the mid-range wines, they're wiping the floor. They're amongst the best in Australia. So good choice, Pedro.
They are destroying the competition at that price point. Under 20 euros is she's a beast. She is exactly what I want from Barossa Valley. And like you say, Shiraz. I expect it to be Shiraz. And I expect it. So my Côte de Rhône, I'm going to go with a cassoulet with some lovely foods and things like that. And it's going to be nice. It's not going to be too heavy because it's a Côte de Rhône. It's going to be smooth. And then you got this bad boy.
Yeah, and that has got an amazing complex nose. Hang on, I'm just going to say just something that's seen as stupid. I think we have divided the world of wine always in two groups. There's the Burgundy lovers and there's the Bordeaux lovers.
Yeah.
But in fact, there is the single grape lover and there is the blend lover. And to be honest, why would you choose? Because this is fantastic to have the greatest expression of one grape. We had it before, Malbec. We had it Cabernet Franc, even though it was blended with a tiny drop of Malbec. And here we got three grapes. Hang on. We have Grenache, which is fantastic. Do you have this nose, Pedro?
Mate, friggin' this is smoky, this is rich, and I agree with what you said. There's all this spice coming off this as well. It's like hearty, it's warming, but the thing that I love about these wines by Torbreck is they're not overbearing. Because that alcohol thing, that power thing you get from Barossa Valley at like under 25 euros often can be too in your face. I'm thinking, what's that old school? Two Hands, stuff like that. 16% like monster of alcohol and power and like, whoa. Just tone it down. I prefer a bit more.
I think this is well balanced because when basically you have a blend, you can have the first one that is in full expression and then the others are playing backups. It's like orchestra. You can be a pianist on your own, and it's brilliant. Yeah. But you can be a piano that is backing up violins, and then you have altogether different concept. So here, this is typically what's happening. Grenache is giving us the spices and the red fruits. It's almost like sweets, bonbon, really sort of richness and sweetness, and it's comforting. But then when you smell again and again, you're looking out for a very juicy and ripe and rich and black fruit Shiraz and Mourvèdre. That is epic.
I have found the wine I'm taking home. Boom. This is the one in a heartbeat. Because I am not like spitting that out. That is, and to take your analogy to an over the top way, that is a symphony. That is a lot of flavor of loads of different stuff. That's boom, 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 boom.
Pedro, when you have this kind of wine, I give you two tips. The first one is basically use a decanter because within minutes, you can certainly transform the flavors of the wine. So let's put it back. Let's put a bit more. Yeah. You can go frankly because this is kind of young wine. Please don't do that with 40 years old.
Love it. We're going to do the aeration. We're not doing hyper aeration with a blender because that's a bit scary. But yeah,
this is now. Yeah. The wine is in contact with so much oxygen. Yeah, that it will liberate the wine. It will free the wine. And when we are going to put it back in the glass, yeah, usually a big glass for a big, a big red wine, then it will open up and we will have a different nose. I'll let you know in a second. The second tip, look, when you pour into your glasses and you really want to enhance the experience, just tilt the glass on the side, yeah? And put wines on every single part of the glass. Basically, turn it round, turn it round, turn it round. So then the wine has coated your glass. And then when you have a nose, after decanting and after preparing your glass like this, never be the same again. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Another tip of the day from the Frenchman.
Ooh. Now this is full on. You have a glass which is, an explosion of your wine, the best expression ever. Oh my God.
Which is what we're trying to do, right? We spent all this money. We've spent, okay, not much on this, to be honest. It's still only 20 odd euros, but you still spent money. And so you want to get the best out of it. And that little bit makes all the difference of what, like you say, is a symphony of a wine. It is the smokiness, the Grenache, the deep red fruits, the dark fruits is delicious. But I'm really loving the Mourvedre, which just adds this oomph, like this, it's just like a hearty power going on at the bottom,
Lots
right?
of flavors.
Yeah, I'm right. Yeah,
And
then
tannins.
Yeah.
So it shouts for meat now.
Okay.
And basically, now this is probably out of the three, one of the most powerful.
Yeah.
The Cabernet Franc was a lighter style, fruity enough to pair with, very versatile, fantastic, any days, especially lunch. Then you have the fruity Malbec, which can go without food, with food, very versatile. Remember about it, pack it with flavor. And
Awesome.
now, the Stallbreak is so complex and spicy, a bit richer, a bit more firm with the Mourvedre, that you can go for proper meat. And I think you suggested Chateaubriand, and Chateaubriand is a particular cut. Basically, it's almost fillet, yeah?
Right.
And so you can have it rare to medium rare, to have almost uncooked raw beef.
French style.
The flavor and real high protein content, where these kind of tannins are going to be a delight. And in the mouth, I'm already sitting at your table and you're serving me this Chateaubriand. Oh, wow.
So it's a centerpiece wine for a centerpiece meal as well. It's not just, it's got smack in the face of quality. Spice, pepper of the Shiraz. But what I love is often Barossa Valley can be really peppery, really intense. But because it's got the blend of the Grenache and the Mourvedre, actually it's toned down, just suppressed some of that spiciness. It's still there. I'm not saying if you like Shiraz, you're not going to like this. It's there, but it just makes it more manageable, more approachable, more. I'm sounding like I'm just talking shit. I'm just extolling the virtues of this too much, but it's been a long time since I've had a Tourbrec wine.
You're right, and every time the same thing.
Yeah,
the
last time was like 4 or 5 years ago at a wine fair where I was there and speaking to Andrew, who's the export director, who was sat bored out of his skull at a station with all his wines, and I just went up and tasted everything he does, and I was like, first of all, this is me done for the day now. I can't taste any more wines after this, but they are phenomenal.
Thank you, Pedro. This Tourbrec just makes me speechless, to be honest. Yes, I do want this as my centerpiece, like with my best meat. And as you were pairing with many, many dishes, then yes, that will just sublime any kind of premium meat that you want to serve, from pork to beef and lamb, just perfect. Oh, as the Australian would do, put it on the barbie, to be honest. Usually we tend to think that with barbecue wines, it's sort of lesser meat, so lesser wine, boom, boom, boom. Think again, with great meat, cooked to perfection, with marinated with flavor, and then pile up your stupidly good wine with it, like this Tourbrec. You will be the star of the barbecue. Everyone will say, "Yeah, we'll come back next weekend." Of course they will.
So I remember exactly that was the butterfly leg of lamb that I'd marinated for. I'm not skilled enough to butterfly it, but I got the butcher to butterfly it out, and then you marinate it with rosemary, whole cloves of garlic, a couple of slices of lemon, some olives, and like marinated it for 3 days. And then it's a huge piece of meat, but half an hour on the barbecue, not too hot, but just on a nice barbecue, was perfect. Because you end up like making everyone happy because you've got the outside bits on the end are a bit more brown and a bit more well down for those people who can't do it. But the center is just like after, obviously you've got to let it rest. And I can't stress this enough to people, let the meat rest. In the same way as he's just banged on about putting wine in a decanter and letting it air, I'm saying just put your meat aside. And I learned this a lot with this kind of amount of like lamb, is that when you put that on the board just for 10 minutes, even 20 minutes with some foil over it, it relaxes. It stops being so tightly wound. And then it softens out and then you slice through it. And I wouldn't really serve it with much. The classic actually I was doing was couscous, like a tabbouleh type simple thing on the side. That's it.
Or dauphinoise.
Mate, we did it with dauphinoise, and I ended up giving Graham what was basically a coma. He was just done for the night. Like we drank all this wine, and he woke up the next morning going, "I couldn't sleep." We'd had all this meat and this dauphinoise because I made dauphinoise with double cream and like Gruyere, not the French way. I go overboard, and that was too much. But yeah, I think.
But you're right. The star of the show is the meat. So just have a simple salad. Yeah. But the star of the show, this is where you put so much effort. 3 days of marinated lamb or beef, served with that, with the right seasoning, then you're on. It is simple, but simple food. Yes, the seasoning. Oh my God, this is important.
Yeah. And then you have it with the contemplation wine, the wine that has the length and the finish that actually means you don't just sit there and smash through the meat and the wine really quickly. You sit there and you sip the wine and you slowly get stuck into the meat because it just melts in the mouth. And like you say with Chateaubriand, so Tourbrec, Chateaubriand, phenomenal.
What a wine. Thank you for bringing Tourbrec and this Riccitelli Malbec and the Rats Cabernet Franc. Well done.
So thank you very much, my friend. This is just to give me your final tips, because I'm talking about my concept was you can find the same kind of wines you would in France, but elsewhere in the world, but be warned, they won't be the same. So expect more intensity, more flavor, more character, more warmth to them. But actually, when you have them with the food, it just makes them easier, softer, even smoother than they already are. They're my kind of belief as to why I've done these wines. What kind of tips would you give?
I'm going to give you this tip. Never, ever stop to explore, because you have no idea how many delicious wines there are out there. So if you're French and you're listening to this, then you love your Cabernet Franc from Loire, you love your Malbec from Cahors, and you love your Côte du Rhône. You have no idea. There are hundreds of examples coming from dozens of countries. And you will find that actually every time you try something different, it reinforces the love you have of your favorite wines. So, well, now time to explore.
Santé, monsieur. Santé.
But cheers to that. Santé, Pedro. Oh my God, this is good.
It's the same for me and you. This is so good.
Simple, but so good. Oh, it wipes the floor, to be honest.
With the other two. And the other two are good. Ooh. I have no complaints with the other two. I'm like the Cab Franc. It's really nice, really smooth, really medium. The Malbec, what a finish. Lovely. This guy is a winner. I've gone through half a bottle. I'm loving this right now. Listen, my friend, thank you. Thank you so much for letting me taste these wines with you. It's a shame that you live now over 100 kilometers away and that I can't just nip round and we can't drink these wines together, because the amount of wine chat that we have is must drive your wife crazy. And I appreciate the fact that she can withstand it. But thank you for giving me your time and for imparting your knowledge.
Thank you for inviting me, and you were right, sending these 3 quality bottles. I absolutely loved it to have the chat with you.
And cheers to you, my friend. And cheers to everybody. Thank you very much for, I don't know if you've noticed, I seem to have drunk more than I normally do. I'm not spitting quite as much. And that might have been some of the glasses of champagne we had at lunchtime as well. But you know, it's a good day for it. The sun was shining. Anyway, thank you very much for joining in. And if you want to leave any comments below, please do. May I suggest that if you click on the subscribe to our channel, you get notified when we're coming out with more product, more videos, and you can get notified when we're doing premieres and things like that, because I am doing more of these. We are still fundamentally in lockdown right now, so we're going to do more of these. So please subscribe, leave a comment, whatever you can do, just get in touch, because we love wine. I love talking about wine, and I love drinking wine. Thank you very much, and good night.